Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Brown Bag Bets. Powered by BetSperts, we are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me from his beautiful sunny living room, Andy Molitor. How you doing, bud?
Good. Yeah, blizzard warning today in Minnesota. Should be an interesting afternoon. It's like 50 degrees, going to turn on a dime. So it'll be, hopefully I see you guys tomorrow because that's not that much snow. It's just blizzards are nasty with the wind. So should be an interesting afternoon, but it is a big day. Big, not a huge college basketball card out there, but a massive NBA card. Yesterday was the opener, and that was a lot of fun. I had some team total over for the Nets. That was kind of a fun never-in-doubter. Even when we got to a really, really garbage time, that offense was a lot of fun to watch, and the defense actually played a little. The late game was a little wonky. I actually didn't stay up to watch my bet lose, but such is life. So 1-1 in the NBA, I guess, and need to improve on that today. My college team just didn't show up in the second half. Sometimes that happens, but back to the well today, and tomorrow we will have a show. I said Friday, no show for Christmas, but tomorrow is a fun announcement too. We have a new sponsor, new partner over at the BetSperts, and we will be announcing some stuff tomorrow. We'll be talking more about it this weekend as we get into the Friday, Saturday, Sunday deep dive halftime shows, the deep dive streams, and we'll get into that tomorrow. And for now, let's just get into some picks because there are plenty of basketball games, like I said. Something I've looked at, and I don't have a lot to say on these teams that I bet other than I bet them. And I kind of want to go back and look at this. I wonder if some of the adjustments I've made have caused me to bet more road teams. And I think I have to check if Lamar was yesterday, but today I bet on 3 road teams. And I think the slight adjustment I've made down on home field or home court, I guess you want to call it with basketball, I wonder if that's doing something. And I think when we get our guest in here in a bit, and maybe as we go through the season, this will be a topic that's probably interesting to talk about in the NBA because the last, 50 NBA games I watched were in Orlando. So we're running into a whole different thing with the fandom thing. So for now, just Weber State, I got a 15 on this. I'd play this down a couple points still. I think this one's way off, even against a good team like BYU. Again, with home field being what it is, and this being a neutral one played at Vivint, I think, is where the Jazz play.
Maybe Vivant.
I used to know somebody who worked there at Vivant, but this is when I played. And then, like I said, 3 road games. Coppin State, I think some people probably overrating Iona a little bit at this point too, based on the name of their coach. And for the nightcap, and if you really do like to bet a late game, this one does start at like 10 Eastern. New Mexico plus 11.5. You can still grab all the. I pulled it up right now. You can pretty much grab all these numbers right now if you're still popping around. Looks like the Weber State number's getting beat up a little, but I will continue to be betting overnights. They might be put out a little later than normal, as I am kind of going to have to wait eventually here for some certain books to open up for me. So I'm thinking probably after supper time for the most part going forward, but overnights are a lot of fun when you get a lot of closing line value. I know you do some of that in the NBA too, and sometimes it bites you in the ass. I mean, I've had that too, but it's really great when you get the closing line value. So what do you think? Big slate tonight. Should we talk NBA?
Before we jump into that, I will just remind everybody again, the best way, of course, and that's the nice thing about the BetSperts app, you can turn the little notification on for Andy or myself, and you get all that stuff early so you don't have to wait or worry about any of those times. And I did have a quick question. You talked about home court. Do you have maybe like a brief answer or comment about how you try to evaluate that? And, so when you start to look at some of your data, how do you see home court, and have you seen, if you will, the advantage be any less, even though we have, kind of a short bit of data here at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I need to clean some data, because if you want to compare, people have done that, say you can compare how often the home team wins in the NFL in previous seasons and then look at this season, and that's fine. But right now I'm looking at the college basketball season and looking at home records. It's really, really hard to compare that to a full season, because there have been, I'm not even going to try to guess in a percentage, but there's a big percentage of home college basketball games that have been played against like Lady of the Lake. And, teams like this where, like Division II teams that they're never going to host games. So the home record right now is kind of screwy because of so many of those home games are Division II non-ranked teams. So I'm going to monitor going forward. And again, we're 2 games into the NBA season. We'll get into that as we go.
All right, something to tuck away and maybe circle back on. I think it's a really interesting topic, and it's something I hear people talk about a lot, but I don't even personally understand it as well as I should. So maybe it's something we'll talk about a little bit later, because we do have a ton of NBA games to talk about, and we thought it would be good to bring somebody on. Last week we had your partner in crime, Drew, and today we thought it would be good to bring in my partner in crime. So let's welcome Spread Astaire. You might know him from his work at
I hit his picture.
That's okay. You might know him from Run Pure Sports. You might know him from Twitter. It's Spread Astaire. Of course, you know him as my co-host on the Net Worth podcast. Spread, what's up, man? How you doing? Did you enjoy the ball last night?
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. Obviously, the first game was kind of a dud. Second game, wasn't sure if they were just keeping LeBron out there for tactical reasons or how bad that sprained ankle really was. But definitely a lot of fun to tip off with some meaningful NBA basketball, even though the end of the Warriors game kind of looked like preseason still.
Yeah, it definitely had a little bit of a preseason-y feel last night.
Andrew Wiggins was in the preseason.
Oh, that was
you could see a couple players that looked like they were warmed up. Marc Gasol had really struggled in that second game. I wonder if he's going to try to play himself into shape. But any big takeaways from you from last night, or just kind of early season jitters and let's move forward?
Yeah, so there was a lot of takes on the Nets-Warriors game. I thought it was more of a referendum on, I don't know if the Warriors are going to be that good this year. I know that, we had done our previews. We kind of slotted them in, that 4 through 7 range. But boy, if Curry doesn't get any help from Wiggins and Oubre, that team's really going to struggle to make the playoffs. So I thought it was more a referendum on maybe this Golden State team might not be as good as a coronation of the Nets. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree there. It might have been, like you said, more about the Warriors and less about the Nets, although the Nets did look impressive. Andy, any questions for Spread quickly before we jump into some picks?
I mean, how do you attack a slate like this? There's 13 games. We haven't seen anybody play. We had a short preseason. We had like a 70-game layoff. I mean, are you approaching this like you normally would opening week, or how much care are you taking to not just blow it up from day one?
Oh, I feel like blowing it up. My idea here is basically this is some of the purest handicapping we get. There's not a lot of situational spots. We don't have rest situations. And our numbers and our models aren't going to be necessarily inflated or deflated by ridiculous results. Because, right now, like, look at the Warriors, how bad they would look, after you punch that game into your model. And there's not really a lot of public perception. It's just handicapping, the rosters and the matchups. So I'm actually kind of excited for it. I thought the NFL season was easier the first 8 weeks than when everything really got dialed down. So I kind of feel the NBA might be the same way.
Yeah, it's a two-way street with the, you can say, oh, we don't know what these teams are going to be like. And it's really hard to say with, 8 new coaches and players all over the place getting traded and moved around and a team playing in Florida rather than up in Canada. So a lot of goofy stuff. But at the same time, the sports books are in the same position. The people that do set the lines. So it is a two-way street on that. And there's no price discovery. If you're better than the market at the price discovery early, you're going to crush it. So hopefully that's what we're going to do.
Got to dance with variance, folks. Let's jump into some picks, and I'm going to be a little selfish here and start with my own spread. There was one total I bet last night. It's still pretty close to the number that's around. I like the Sacramento Denver total over 225.5. I know you're a big Sacramento Kings fan. When I start to look at this matchup, I think with you guys being mostly healthy, De'Aaron Fox playing, I'm sure they're going to try to push the pace and try to keep things going. Denver has just an abundance of scorers. I mean, with Michael Porter Jr. healthy, with Jamal Murray healthy, with Jokic healthy, one of those guys is going to be on the floor. So you're going to have a lot of offensive output. For Denver, I make this a little closer to 230 myself. What do you think of this? I mean, do you expect a fast-paced game tonight, Spread?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. One of the major criticisms that Luke Walton received when taking over for Jaeger was that he allowed the pace to slip. One of the successes the Kings had in that 2018-2019 season that everyone was so excited about was their ability to get up and down the floor and allow their shooters. That was when they still had Bogdanovic, but Hield and Bogdanovic to get great shots. So there's been an emphasis this training camp on restoring the pace of play because the Kings do so much better when they have a majority of their shots in transition. They're still struggling to get those great shots in the half court set. Fox is good. But a lot of times they just look so much better in transition. So that's been a key focus this preseason, is to increase the pace. So I think these numbers are going to play out in your favor. Not to mention they can't necessarily cover. And a lot of these Nuggets players, it doesn't matter who you put on them defensively, they're gonna score either way. So I'm definitely in lockstep with you on this play.
Nice. Always good to have your support. Now let's jump into a couple of your picks. You have 3 that you wanted to talk about. Let's start with Milwaukee. They are, I think you grabbed -3 last night. It looks like it's stretched out to -4 in Boston tonight. What do you think? What are you seeing in this matchup? What is pushing you towards the Bucks?
Yeah, and so I think a lot of things that we do, and we even had this problem on our previews, is we think of these teams as playoff contenders and how they're going to match up in playoff series, and we kind of ignore regular season successes and how the regular season works. And Milwaukee is a regular season juggernaut. So I think that's going to continue. They obviously have a lot to prove. And at the same time, we're looking at a Boston team really struggling to have someone who's going to start their offense in the half-court set, and that's with Kemba Walker being out. And it's going to be interesting to see how that arthritic knee progresses in the length of his contract. But with no Kemba tonight, they'll be relying a little more on Marcus Smart. I love Marcus Smart overall as a player, but I don't know if I'm wanting him as my primary playmaker. I know that Hayward has kind of been denigrated, but I still think that's a big loss for them, especially on the offensive end, to create some shots when Brown and Tatum are trying to take their rest. And at the same time, we have a Milwaukee team that's augmented itself, adding Jrue Holiday, which gives Giannis another playmaker. And basically, it's just a regular season juggernaut. I don't think that Stevens is going to have time to implement all the things that he might use to stifle Milwaukee in a 7-game playoff series. So I think Milwaukee rolls tonight.
Still cool with the 4. Yeah, it's you fed us some stuff that you wanted to talk about, and then I looked at what you played yesterday, and then I just looked it up to make sure there was the numbers were semi-available, and all 3 of the plays you wanted to talk about moved your way. So it's like tough from a broadcasting standpoint. Like, oh well, here's some numbers at spread bet last night that you can't get, but also great for a spread handicapping standpoint. Everything moved your way. So it's good. Still cool. Like -4, you'd still play that if you're trying to give this out right now.
Yeah, I would still play it. Of course, in the regular season, I don't know about you guys. I start with half units, even though I am confident, when we're speaking right now, I still know that there is a ton of variance and some of the reads could be wrong. So if you're just doing a half unit game, I love it. The 2 games that Milwaukee beat Boston last year, they won by 5 and 7. So they would have covered 3 or 4 here. So I still like it at -4.
Yeah, I do too. I think 4 is pretty solid. It's probably nothing too much deeper than that. Picking up Jrue Holiday from Milwaukee is only going to be better. I think he's just going to beat up Kemba Walker, even if Kemba's healthy and playing tonight. So that's a pretty good look. Let's see. The next one you had on your list spread was the Miami Heat. You got -3.5 last night. It's out to 4.5 last night. So break down the matchup for us a little bit. Why are you excited to bet Miami here in a matchup against the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, so, when we did our previews, we necessarily weren't high on Orlando. Now, I think when we're in the starting lineups, right, Orlando's going to start Fultz, Fournier, James Ennis, Gordon, Vukovic. I mean, that can hang with the Miami team. So I'd be interested to see what your first quarter model says for this. But I think the real advantage here and where we're going to get into covering the spread is when they go to the benches. Terrence Ross is all right. I don't trust Cole Anthony yet. Dwayne Bacon. I mean, these guys from the Magic. And then you look at the Heat. They're bringing in Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Iguodala, Kelly Olynyk. I think they're really going to be able to stretch this lead during the reserve minutes of the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second, end of the third, beginning of the fourth. I think that Orlando's bench is really going to have problems keeping up. And talk about another team with something to prove. Miami was the talk of the bubble. What a great performance, but boy, they fell flat there in the finals, and I'm sure they're itching to get back on the court and kind of erase the taste of those terrible defeats at the very end of the season from their mouth. So I expect Miami to come out fast, motivated. They had problems on the road last year. Let's see if they can go ahead and alleviate that. But my major reason for this handicap is just the difference in the benches.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I'm betting this because I watched I can't remember. It's something Christmas Party. It's that dumb movie with Jason Bateman and Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, I think it's Office Christmas Party or something.
And Jimmy Butler's in that. So
okay,
I have to play this at this point. I saw it last night. I'm like, shit, I got to bet on the Heat tomorrow. But I mean, I like all the points. I am. I'm a big Heat fanboy after their fun run in the playoffs. Like, I've been on record that probably isn't sustainable. That's not what we're going to see this year in the playoffs. But this is not. We're still in game one, and it's still a good team in the East.
Yeah, Miami's healthy. They should be locked in. And, one of the ways I think about this game is there's not a lot of questions that Orlando is going to ask that Miami doesn't have answers for. And Miami's got a ton of questions that I don't think Orlando has answers for. Like you said, the bench is going to be huge. I think this is going to be a nice live betting spot as you start to see some of those Magic starters come off the bench and some of the backup players come in. Don't hesitate. Now, spread, we've got -4.5 here. I'm actually starting to see -5 pop up somewhere. It looks like this number is on the move. What is your kind of end point? When would you stop betting this?
I mean, I think 4.5. I actually, this one, the Milwaukee move didn't bother me as much to give it out on the show. This one I'm starting to get a little worried about. We know that Miami does like to play close games. They're a tough team, might not necessarily be the fastest pace. And I do like the way that Orlando starters match up against Miami. So, towards the end of the game, I could see them coming in for a cover. So, even 4.5, I'm a little hesitant. I wouldn't touch it at 5. Did you run the first quarter model? Does Miami?
Don't have enough data this early in the season. Miami actually is generally one of the slower starters in the first quarter, and Orlando was a team that I bet on a lot last year. Yeah. So I think what we might have is an opportunity here for, if you're watching the game, look for a live spot. You might get a chance to get -3, -4 live if Orlando starts quickly. I mean, again, they were a team that played well in the first quarter last year, but nothing set up so far from that angle for me yet.
I don't care. I'm in. I'm so in. It doesn't matter. And again, I'm not betting very big on the NBA. And I broke even almost last night, so no big deal. One just more you had and this one moved too, I believe. I'm not sure what number you got here. I'm going to have to double check. But my Minnesota Timberwolves coming off lottery success, getting the number 1 pick, and I'm still not excited about this team, but they're still eighth best team in the West. Are we saying Minnesota could be a playoff team? I didn't catch that preview. Where are you putting these guys?
Like 14th.
Oh, come on. I know the West is tough. I'm just hopeful. I grew up in a time where we had Starbury and Garnett, and we're making the playoffs every year, and we almost got it done one time against the Lakers. So wishful thinking, maybe eventually here, but Minnesota -4.5. I guess you can bet this team. It's a bet on team when they play, a team from the East, and probably one of the where do you put them as far as ranking in the East for Detroit?
I think this is the worst roster in the NBA right now.
Yeah, dead last. Okay,
yeah, this is one of the few times we'll be betting on Minnesota this year because I'm not too high on this team at all. But I think you have a great opportunity here at home against a team that I'm not sold on at all. You basically paid half your salary cap for the Nuggets' backup power forwards. Blake is Blake. He's going to get his. DeLon Wright, that's a fine addition. I don't necessarily trust Killian Hayes yet. He's a young player who hasn't, he's coming over from Europe. NBA is definitely a different style of ball. I'm not saying that he won't be a good player, but this is going to be a rude awakening. And over on the other side of the Minnesota side of the ball, we're down on Minnesota, but we're not down on their ability to score. I mean, they are going to be able to score. We're just worried about them on the other end. So, hey, it's almost like the very first level of a video game, right? You're going to start really easy and work up. That's how this Detroit team is. This team, this is 2020. They averaged 94 points in the preseason. 94 points. I mean, everyone else is putting up 120. So just shows that this offense isn't working. I think Minnesota's going to be able to outscore them with ease. And I think, they got a nice little gimme to start the season off on a great note.
I know I was joking about 8th, but I was hoping you'd be like, the gap would be smaller. You'd be like 11th. And I didn't expect the kick in the nuts that was 14th, which is fine. Whatever. Well, at least we have the Vikings.
Well, no, and they could be right, because if this team comes around, if you can get some solid defensive effort from Anthony Edwards, we just worry here about the D'Angelo Russell not being a good defender and Karl Anthony Towns not being a good defender. And those are your two main points of your defense, right? You want to stop the guy with the ball, and you need to protect the rim. And we're having problems either way. We noticed last year that when Towns was out, the defense was so much better. I mean, if we could just get him up to even below average, Minnesota could really be a force. Obviously, a little worried with everything he went through on the offseason that I don't think that we're going to get that jump right away. Also, I'm not a big fan of Saunders. I'll be interested to see how long he stays there with Minnesota, but nothing that I saw last year really showed to me that he's ready to compete, with some of these other coaches here in the NBA.
Yeah, that's a stark statement when you say get up to below average level. That's tough. So it'll be interesting. And yeah, you won't. I mean, you're right. Maybe a few teams in the East when they play, you won't see Minnesota as a favorite all this often. Certainly not a multi-possession favorite like this. So this is your chance to back Minnesota as the better team in a game, and I love that. I'll probably bet this one too, just to say I bet on the Timberwolves once this season. Oh, it was awesome spread. Coming on, talking NBA, especially since I'm not very good at it. It's just fun watching you two go back and forth. It's like, it's something I'm going to pay attention. And I did. I enjoyed the bubble. I'm going to pay attention more this year. Try to get into it a level. I'm probably not building a model, but spread, tell us, where can people find more of your stuff? I know you put out a lot of content, and not only NBA, but tennis, NFL, other stuff. What do you got going on here this Christmas season and into New Year?
Yeah, well, of course, Noops and I have the Net Worth Pod. Follow it at Net Worth Pod. We do NBA, and then in about a month, we will be back with some WTA action and maybe venturing into some ATP. We'll see how that goes. But the WTA is a for sure on lock. You'll be getting there. The previews at Net Worth Pod. And then, of course, I provide content for Run Pure Bets. It's just a subscription service. We have about 7 handicappers. You'll get 40 hours of video content and, 5 to 8 plays per day that we put out on a spreadsheet. So that's $60 a month over at Run Pure Bets, or you can combine it with the daily fantasy side of Run Pure Sports, and that's $100 for both. And on the daily fantasy side, you'll be getting the core plays to build some fantasy teams, and those guys are real successful over there. They left Roto Grinders to start Run Pure Sports. So Run Pure Bets and Net Worth Pod is where you can find me, and just me individually at Spread a Stare. Cool.
All right. Well, let's call her a day. When do these games start? Is there any afternoon games before I get too excited? Nothing till 6. All right. I was gonna say if there was an afternoon game, I might make you give me a lean if I had to bet like a 2 p.m. game, but nothing right now, nothing till this evening. So full slate. Thanks a lot to Spread. And like I said, special announcement tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about a fun new partnership we have, and we'll catch you then.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I love this project you guys are doing. I can knock it out real quick when I wake up if I sleep through it. And, it's great information just to start my handicapping day. So I appreciate all the effort you guys are putting in.
That's why I DM'd you a little bit ago, because you are on the West Coast. I wanted to make sure you were awake at this point. So, yeah, thanks a lot. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.